morning, good evening, including for our beautiful webinar guest today, and good afternoon. My name is Dr. Shamini Jan, and I am so pleased on behalf of the Consciousness and Healing Initiative, or CHI, to be bringing you these free Friday webinars on behalf of the entire CHI team, where we get to dive deeply with beautiful leading lights in healing, including leading scientists, leading healing practitioners, and sometimes folks who hold both ends, which we'll learn about today. Our guest today is one of my favorite people and scientists on the planet, Dr. Neil Theise. And if you have not met Neil, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Neil Theise is an adjunct professor now, a formerly non-adjunct professor, I believe, of pathology at the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. Through his scientific research, he has been a pioneer of many different fields, including adult stem cell plasticity, anatomy of the human interstitium, and the human fascial system. Dr. Theise's studies in complexity theory have led to the interdisciplinary collaborations in tremendous fields, advances in tremendous fields, including integrative medicine, consciousness studies, and science-religion dialogue. His first book, which is one of my reigning favorites, called Notes on Complexity, I'm going to hold it up here, highly recommend this book to everyone. We'll talk more about it during our session today. Neil has made complexity cool. I mean, it always was cool, but Neil, you've made it even more cool and very easy to understand, very approachable, and so actually very relevant for our times, and a huge inspiration for me in these times. This book is called Notes on Complexity, a scientific theory of connection, consciousness, and being. It's won many awards, lots of accolades. Neil's been on many very well-known podcasts to discuss this book. So you really broke through, Neil, with this book to the mainstream, which was really wonderful.
Which is
Wonderful.
crazy.
It's really wonderful. No, it's a testament. It's such a well-written book.
Thank you.
Neil is actually currently also writing a memoir of his mother's elder years called Sarah in the In-Between. And with any luck, we'll get to hear a little bit about that. Neil's also a senior student at the Village Zendo in NYC and a shamanic initiate. So he's also a practitioner, and he's also a teacher in some of these beautiful contemplative traditions. So we're here during a time that many would call chaotic, Neil. And first of all, thank you for joining
Oh,
us
sure.
live from London. It's Dr. Neil. So he's joining us
Yeah.
at a relatively late hour, and thank you so much for making time for us today.
No, of course. Thank you for having me. Um, I don't know how you do that. You speak so smoothly, and I always, uh,
I've
but
heard
you
you.
either have that gift or you don't, I think, or you work hard at it. So,
No, I think that one's enthusiasm can sometimes just carry the tongue in many different directions. And so,
right. Yeah.
I just ride the enthusiasm wave. And I am so enthusiastic about what you have been doing over the past several decades as a scientist, and now sort of bringing that more to, as we like to call it sometimes, from the lab to the living room, to help
Hmm.
people understand how these scientific advances are waking us up to our own healing power. I mean, I think really that's one of the big points that I always take away from listening to you and reading your books. And you got me really excited about complexity theory, something that I kind of knew about, but I didn't know about
Right.
very deeply. And that's one of the things that I love about your book. So you go into a little bit of how complexity theory describes living things of all kinds in the living universe. It helps us understand ourselves and our place in the world in a
Hmm.
different way. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Um, as we plotted beforehand, I think that to turn this into an experiential thing could be way fun. So we'll do that in a moment with a little bit of a guided meditation. But for context, the science has what has become Western science. To some extent has followed how we can use mathematics to describe the world. And so you can use geometry to explain the shape of a field you're going to plow for agriculture or how crystals form. Um, we have mathematical equations that can describe, geometric shapes. Or, we can't tell where a molecule is going to go in a glass of water, based on its temperature, but we can do statistical methods and figure out what overall they're doing. So this amount of energy that we can quantify correlates with room temperature water.
Hmm.
Um, but to describe living things has escaped us up until the middle of the last century. And for us to be able to use mathematics to explain those, we had to invent computers because we had to look at how things were evolving over time. And so first, chaos theory was developed. And people are familiar at this point with fractal geometries, these beautiful, incredibly elaborate structures. And what they have in common with each other in part is that no matter how close in you go, it looks the same. We
Hmm.
call that scale invariance. So you look at a tree and you go in close and there's the trunk, but then you have the branches um, into uh, the larger branches coming out. You go in close to that, it looks like a trunk. You go to
Hmm.
where those branch, it looks like a trunk. You go into those, it looks like a trunk. The blood vessels in our bodies looking the same as river patterns, the Mississippi that you might see from a satellite. Or if you're going in an airplane and you see clouds and you see shapes and it looks like a thing, and then you go in closer and it's like, why can't I get close to these puffy things? You want to touch them, but you can't. They just kept getting more and more things away from you. So that turns out to explain things like the structure of our lungs or our blood vessels, parts of our living systems, but they didn't yet explain life itself. And that's where complexity theory came in. Um, Technically speaking, if you go into the mathematics, the perfect order, like the structure of crystals, where that meets fractal geometry, there's a zone in there at the border, at the edge of chaos, it's referred to. And one of the founders of complexity theory, David Packard, referred to it as life at the edge of chaos. It's sort of where perfect order and chaotic systems are pulling at each other.
Boy,
And
that
out
feels
of
relevant.
yeah, no, exactly. Now, this is something we have to be careful about because we use chaos in the word in different ways. So, chaos as in disorder, welcome to our world.
Right.
But chaos in fractal geometries, there is an order there, but
Yes.
it's very complicated, but not complex. By complexity, we mean this zone where there's tremendously rich information processing. And isn't that what living things are? We're taking in information all the time, whether it's a single cell like a paramecium, or a human body and brain, taking in information, processing it internally. We're not predictable. There's always a low level randomness in the system. So you can't predict what the next moment will be, but you can talk about an array of possibilities for the next moment that are not infinite, but not constrained. And that's kind of the nature of life. We know kind of what could happen in the next moment, but we can't really list every possibility. But it isn't anything. And so that's sort of the flavor of what the mathematics of complexity gives us. It's a way to look at how all living things, whether it's an ecosystem, Gaia, the entire living planet, a cell in our bodies, a neighborhood in a city, an economy. They're all living things described by complexity theory. Um, but because they're at the edge of chaos, you see the same patterns over and over again, no matter how high up in scale you go or how far down in scale. And that has implications for what we think of in terms of the nature of our bodies.
Hmm.
And so, with that flurry, that's as technical as I'll
That's
probably get for
technical.
the
No, but it
talk.
was great. And if I could, just to make sure that I followed, kind of summarize a little bit of what you said.
Hmm.
First of all, when we think of chaos, sometimes in the vernacular, we think of disorder, but chaos is
Hmm.
highly ordered. And you gave the example of fractals
Right.
and we've all experienced that, right? We've all seen it in nature as so eloquently described. So there is a sense of order within mathematically and when looking in nature of what we call chaotic systems, but then you drew us to something that's a little even more information rich than that.
right,
and that is complexity,
right.
where
And that's
we
what we mean
have.
by complex systems. Um, the full term is complex adaptive systems. What's the
Mhm.
hallmark of life? Um, life is creative and adaptive. It will respond to a changing environment to change itself in order to persist and continue. And
What I
that
loved
has,
about that too was how you described that edge of chaos. And I know you go more into it in your book, so I'm remembering some of the things that you wrote about in there. And you alluded to just now in our conversation that this edge of chaos is full of, to quote, perhaps one of our dear friends, our mutual friend Deepak Chopra,
yeah,
full of pure potentiality, right?
right,
Because it's
right,
more
right,
information rich.
right,
So there's more potential for different types of things to occur, including emergence, which you talk about a
right.
bit in your book.
Well,
Now,
I'm glad you said that. So that leads me to a really key example, and that can lead us into a meditation. So, um, an example of complexity is interacting individual things like ants to create a colony, or humans creating a pattern of traffic as they're walking down the street on, um, I was going to say in my neighborhood, the Lower East Side of New York, but in Lisbon, my new neighborhood. um, and and we call these structures that are emerging at a higher level with no one planning it. There's no ant in the colony planning where the food line's going to go. There's no human walking down the street during rush hour planning how the flow of traffic, of pedestrians walking down the sidewalk is going to go. We're all busy with, what am I doing with my day? I'm listening to some music. I'm listening to the news. I'm worrying about, who's going to yell at me. Um, and yet these emergent structures, larger scale structures arise. And a really good example are flocks of birds, particularly starlings. We're used to seeing murmurations of starlings. People love taking videos of them. There are thousands of them online. Where you look up in the sky, you might hear a noise, and you look up and you see this shape moving around above you. And you might, if you're not used to seeing starlings, you might think, what's that balloon? Or is that a spaceship? What is that thing up there? And then you realize, oh, it's not a thing, it's a flock of birds. Well, in the same way, and this is how my research led me into complexity theory, a body is a flock of cells.
mhm.
At this level of scale, we look like solid objects. But when I look at tissues under the microscope, because as you said, I was in the pathology department until I retired a couple of months ago, I spent hours every day looking at bits of human tissue under the microscope. I don't see a human. I see cells organizing themselves into tissues and organs. Sometimes there's inflammation, sometimes there's cancer, sometimes it's normal. So cells self-organize into bodies. And bodies can self-organize into flocks of birds or ant colonies or cities or ecosystems, etc. So this has implications for how we consider what our bodies are and what they're capable of. And I think that's a good entry point to do a little meditation to I can give a bunch of ideas, and I will in the course of the meditation. Um, but we can experience it a little bit more directly.
I love it.
Um,
Yeah, please lead us through a beautiful meditation. I think we would
This
all.
hotel room chair is not well shaped for meditation. I'm going to get a cushion. Be right back.
Okay, you bet. You bet. And while we're waiting on Neil, I just want to point out again, shameless plug for his book because I really do love it. It's really influenced even my recent talks that I've been giving and the relevance of his work to today's time. So the book is called Notes on Complexity, A Scientific Theory of Connection, Consciousness, and Being by Neil Teeth.
There you go. Um, and what I'm going to take us through now is basically the first half of the book. Um, there's an intro in the book about complexity theory, the kind of stuff I was talking about, but then the rest of the first half um, is to contemplate what I'm going to take you through now. So if everybody can sort of sit comfortably cross-legged on the floor if you want. or in your chair, feet planted on the ground, feel the feet, feel the feet, feel the floor meeting your feet, your butt meeting your cushion, and lower your gaze and bring your attention to your breath. In and out. Feel your diaphragm moving, your belly moving in and out. Your ribs expanding, descending. At this level of scale, our bodies are things bounded by our skin. And your breathing functions kind of like a machine. And at this level of scale, where is your boundary? If I say, draw your attention to your chest wall, you're thinking of the wall and the skin that covers it. You might feel some airflow across your skin. And that's kind of how we define inside and outside. There's outside your skin is other, and inside your skin is this thing that we call I or me or a self. Separate. Now, in your mind's eye, take your imagination down to the level of your cells. The way I do in my clinical practice, I pick up a slide and I put it under the microscope, and I don't see a body. I see neighborhoods of cells, communities of cells, flocks of cells. Sometimes they're touching their neighbors, but some of them are moving through your body. If you can bring your attention to your heart and become aware of your vascular system and all the cells of your blood moving, the cells of your heart moving, the cells of your lung shifting so they expand the airways, shifting again to help close the airways. You're a flock of cells. At this level of scale, where is your boundary? We know that the cells of your skin are shedding constantly into the room around you. That's what the dust of your room is. So at the cellular level, your boundary is at least as wide as the space you inhabit. But we also know that your entire skin and all the crevices inside your body are lined by the microbiome, mostly bacteria, other things, mostly bacteria. And without your microbiome, you can't be a living human being. You can't have this human body, which we experience as this thing, without the bacteria that cover and line all the interior crevices. And whenever you touch something, a doorknob, another person's hand in a handshake, when you brush cheeks, if you're kissing someone hello, when you give someone a hug, when you pick up a pencil and then set it down, you're leaving microbiome behind, your microbiome. And we know now that the microbiome is so fluid with the environment and so interactive that if you have an apartment with people in it and their pets, within a very short time, weeks to a couple of months, the microbiome becomes a single microbiome, a single living system with a few islands of humans, cats, and dogs. So at the cellular level, where are your boundaries? The spaces you inhabit through your day, the people you come in contact with physically, directly or indirectly. Your boundary is not your skin. Feel that as you breathe. Now, using your imagination, go down to the level of a single cell. Go in closer still so the cell itself disappears and it's just molecules floating in the water of your body, which are also just molecules. There is no cell. There's just molecular movement. The kinetic energy of your body temperature providing the energy of motion and interaction of all the proteins, the sugars, the hormones, the amino acids, every molecule in your body jostling because of the kinetic energy of your body temperature. Feel the blur at this level of scale. Now, where are your boundaries? Simplest example. We're breathing out as we breathe. Bring your attention back to your breath while we're doing this. We're breathing out carbon dioxide. For all the plant mass of the planet to breathe in into their jostling molecular systems to produce oxygen that we breathe in. At the molecular level, your boundaries are the entire biomass of the planet. There are no boundaries between you and any other living thing. That's in terms of space. How about in terms of time? Feel your body as a molecular system going back to yesterday, the day before, the year before, the decade before, young adult, teenager, child, toddler, baby, newborn, fetus, embryo. The molecular substance of your body is seamless with the egg that came from your mother. The egg that was in her already at the time she was born from her mother and from her mother and from her mother back to 1,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. 300,000 years ago, and it's no longer a human that we name Homo sapiens, it's Homo erectus, back to Homo habilis, back to small little mammals, back to amphibians, fish, to the single cells that were the source of all Earth. Where are your boundaries? You are just one skin cell shedding in the course of your lifetime from the skin of the biomass of the entire planet. Seamless and whole. Are molecules a fundamental thing? Do they have real existence inherently? Take a water molecule, hydrogen and oxygen. At the atomic level, where are the boundaries for your body? As you breathe in, as you drink, as you eat. At the atomic level, there is no atom in your body that you didn't breathe, eat, or drink from the planet as a whole. It is true to say that we are lonely, anxious creatures walking around on top of a planet, this big round rock we call Earth. It is equally true that we are the atomic substance of the planet that has taken 3.5 billion years to self-organize into beings that think of themselves as separate. At the atomic level, your boundary is the entire mass of the planet, organic and inorganic. Gaia, the Gaia hypothesis of Lynn Margulies and James Lovelock, this is what they were talking about. The farther down in scale you go, the wider your boundaries go. Are atoms fundamental? No, they're just protons, neutrons, electrons. And those are just quarks and other subatomic particles and fields. And now we're in the quantum realm, where there's entanglement and non-locality, where a single electron both can be in front of you, hovering in space as you're sitting here breathing. And at the same time, that electron is a wave of probability that extends out to the entire universe. At the quantum scale, there are no boundaries. The whole of existence, the universe itself, is a boundless body. Nothing separate, nothing independent, differentiating within itself to produce the appearance of being separate. But that's merely a choice we make about how we wish to view ourselves. So here we are contemplating our seamless unity with the entire universe. Where are we doing that? In our minds. It's consciousness that can contain all of this and hold it. And that would be the argument of the second half of the book, that it's a vast, undifferentiated, non-dual, pure awareness that gives rise to all of this as a means of contemplating itself, as you're doing now. Perhaps that's the purest activity of the universe. This right here. Okay, that was a lot.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Now you don't have to read the book. But please buy it anyway.
No, read it. Really amazing. Yeah, and thank you for those popping in and sharing some love in the chat. Feel free to. I know I forgot to ask y'all where you're coming from, which I usually do at the beginning. Neil, I think you'd be pleased to see how many folks come from all over to listen to wisdom, to listen to the collective wisdom. Mind blown, says Betsy Ann. Yes, yeah, indeed. Incredible, and so many places to go in our conversation next. And I also just want to remind those of you who may be joining us for the first time, we will have time for you to ask Neil a question or two, and I will reserve some time in the last 10 minutes or so. Mountain View, yeah, throw in where you're hailing
Nope.
from. All the complex units, all the little pieces
I
of.
might be in Mountain View in October.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
Montreal, Geneva, yeah, San Mateo, Germany, Frankfurt, another north of Germany, UK, and Bristol. Okay, we've got some European.
Okay, Europe.
New York,
Here.
yes, Fort Mill,
There's
yes.
my German
Oh,
passport.
Redwood City.
Freedom.
Look at all of these little bursts of complexity, all of these beautiful embodiments of the universe, all here together to come into realization of ourselves together as a collective. So beautiful. Canada, Ireland, Amherst.
Canada. My
That's going
husband's
on.
Canadian.
I love it. You know, there's so many places that I would love to go in this conversation after that experience. And the one
Sure.
that I think is most relevant and salient, and perhaps something that you haven't had a chance to dive into deeply with some of your other interviews, is, and there are no right or wrong answers here, Neil. And you know, I hope you don't mind that I'm asking you to essentially conjecture on this. I
It's what I love to do,
conjecture,
conjecturing.
right?
I'm a
That's what I did
Gemini.
when I read your book. And of course, because I've had a biofield lens on for many moons now, I thought, ooh, complexity. I wonder how we could understand healing with the biofield
Mhm.
through a complexity lens,
Yeah.
particularly as we talk about the biofield as fields of energy and information
Hmm.
that facilitate our healing, right?
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, you know, I could wax on further, but just, you know, to give you some placeholders for the thinking here, we can go all the way from helping us understand distant healing to the information that healers will often get, whether they're in the same room with a person or not,
Right.
about a person's condition, the
Right.
whole thing. So, how would you explain what is happening in biofield healing from a complexity lens?
Easy. So, what here we're talking about the quantum level, the energetic level of the body, where fields are vast and spacious and overlap with each other, are not separate. Because of the interstitial work I've done, I find myself speaking in front of fascia world audiences and osteopaths very often. And that's where some of the integrative medicine stuff comes in too. And something I like to emphasize with those folks who have often have really profound experiences of other living beings that aren't accommodated by Western medicine, Western biology. What we mean by Western medicine and Western biology is that bodies are made of cells and all cells derive from other cells. So Western medicine and Western biology came about when microscopes were invented and you could look at tissue under the microscope and see that it wasn't an endlessly divisible fluid continuum. It was little boxes that looked empty. And if you take a small little box and cut it, you don't get smaller boxes. You just get fragments. So they said, oh, cells are the fundamental reality of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So
Possible.
that is true. we just went through that level, experiencing where our boundaries are at the cellular level. That's my professional life. But that's only one selected view. When you come down to the quantum scale, our bodies are profoundly electromagnetic. They're generating electromagnetic fields. And my interstitium work bears on that too, because it suggests what some of the roots of that electricity is that's independent of the nervous system and independent of the conduction in the heart and stuff like that. But what it means practically is if you are some kind of healer, whatever kind, and you might not even know you're a healer, but you have intuitions about people. Um, and there's someone waiting in a treatment room and you're coming down the hall. The interaction doesn't start when you come in and introduce yourself and shake their hand. The interaction comes as your field of influence moves into contact, deeper contact, because they're always in contact at that scale, but closer and closer, more vivid contact as you merge into a single living being. Is it true that you're two people in that treatment room? Of course it is. At this level of scale, we're separate. But just as equally true, you're a single living system. And it may not require manipulation. It may not require mechanics. It may not require electricity. It may just require conscious interaction. Every, it's my husband checking in, making his phone is dying, so he's going to come get me
Good.
after we're done. He's wandering around London. Um, see,
Talk about
I
feeling right.
mean,
Yes.
but this is an example,
Yeah.
if you're in a long-term relationship with somebody, a spouse, a child, a pet, there's intuitions that arise. They're about to call you. Um, those are true things. The question is, where do you choose to be aware and how do you make an intervention? If I break my arm, I don't want an energy healer to come in here. I want an orthopedist to put a cast on. The energy healer can come in after and help generate an electromagnetic field, which helps the bone to grow. But for this thing, I want mechanics. Um, but I have some sort of malaise. And I don't know what it is, and I can't, there's nothing diagnostic. All my tests are normal, or maybe they're all a little bit abnormal, and I just don't know. And someone comes in the room, and their mere presence alleviates something. They may not be able to say what it is they're doing. I may not be able to explain um, or even quantify the change, but something new is happening between us because we're not separate. It's nothing but fields. The question is, what's the most skillful, efficacious moment of interaction? That's my husband coming in the door, I think, to plug in his phone. Go ahead. No, that's okay. That's Mark, my husband. There are Canadians listening.
Hi, Canadians.
Hi, Mark.
That's Chamonix. You've never met her.
Feel free to pop in and say hello. Yeah,
That's
to
okay.
all of us.
So, um, and think about that. So, there's this famous study. It's not a terribly well done study. It's not, as far as I know, it's never been repeated in a rigorous fashion, but it's eminently believable in some fashion. We know that if you take a beating heart and put it in a magnetic field, it will entrain, its beating will entrain to the pulsing of the magnetic field. Hearts are electromagnetic and generate electromagnetic fields. So another heart comes in towards the first heart. There's an electromagnetic field it can entrain to. The study that's out there in the literature says they can feel each other within around 10 to 12 feet. So we've been together 38 years, and most of our evenings, our nights are spent this close to each other. Are we one being or two? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Depends.
That's the whole point. That's the whole,
That's the whole point.
I
And
love
there are
this.
times,
It's great that you're describing the field interactions and, the shift in perspective, but also the shift in experience. And you led us to kind of exploring that from the base of it all, and
mhm,
perhaps what the base of healing, of course, is, which is love and that
right,
recognition of the unity of consciousness. And so, what
mhm,
I think I hear you saying is, as we allow ourselves to have that experience, knowing that on one level of scale, we're physical bodies, we have our own conditioned minds and all of that, during the healing process, we're being given this opportunity to literally fuse, not in an unhealthy kind of codependent way or anything like that,
right,
but to recognize the oneness and bring ourselves into the oneness. And so this is why so many healers will say, I don't like the term healer. I'm not doing anything. I'm facilitating a process. I'm facilitating, if you will, a realization
right, right.
allows for it. But this, so the connection then with consciousness in the broader sense, let's just say
Mhm,
broader, I don't know what the right
mhm,
term is to use,
yeah,
appears to allow us to open to be aware of fields of energy and information that can direct our healing in
yes.
ways that we still don't understand, but that the data is showing us through things like biofield healing,
Hmm,
very
hmm.
real, down to the
Right,
cellular level, down
right,
to cellular signaling. So
right.
this is actually palpable and even realizable on the physical scale.
Yeah. Because every scale is it's not, we don't have different bodies, you know? This is all one body I've been describing, but it's the nature of the human mind that you can sort of only focus at one versus another. An image I have in the book that I like to use is that classic thing of the two profiles facing each other, and the space between them looks like a vase. Are they two faces? Are they a vase? Yes. You can only see it from one perspective or the other. Some people say, no, I can see them both. Actually, fMRI shows you're moving really quickly between them. So you have to, being human, we sort of have to make a choice as to which perspective we're going to function from and respond from. But all of it is a seamless meeting within consciousness, as Deepak would say. Um, Now, for some people, for an orthopedist, meeting me here is where I want to be met. Um, for a Reiki master who's on the other side of the planet, who knows, well, so becoming an expat is not easy. We're learning. We've been in Portugal for 2 months. We don't speak the language yet. It's hard. 5 people called me the day before yesterday to check in. I was having a very hard day. People are not calling me on a regular basis because they know I don't want daily check-ins from 100 people. 5 people out of the blue were like, "Are you okay?" So there was something there. We meet each other in different ways at different scales. And some of us have healing gifts, and you're right. I mean, that's a problematic word too, that function at this level of scale or this level of scale. Ultimately, fundamentally, it's all just consciousness, which this is the the argument I'm making in the new book I'm writing. Isn't that a nice little segue? Um, which is nothing but compassion,
Mm,
love.
I think this is so relevant. And I want to remind people, do want to honor that we do leave space for questions if you have them. And if you're joining us here on Zoom, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you click that and put in your question, I will do my best to make sure that it gets answered by Neil in the remaining time that we have. So please don't be shy. And I do encourage you to get to it first, because sometimes what happens is I start reading out one or two and then everyone's brains light up and then we have 20 and then we have no time. So if you do have a
And you
pressing question,
see, I don't know how to do a short answer.
no, it's beautiful. But yeah, we do want to make sure we have time. So please do put in your Q&A any questions that you have. Well, here's one from Mr. Lloyd right away. And sure, Neil, this is going to be a 2-second answer from you, I'm sure, for anyone. This question is so simple. Can you say more about consciousness?
No.
See, that took only
Um,
one word. That's great.
yeah. Um, that's the second half of the book, and I still, what there are three classes of potential views um, of how consciousness relates to the universe. Our culture's view is our brains make our minds. That's the materialist view. Our brains are a factory for producing thoughts and experiences. It doesn't work. The hard problem of consciousness. I mean, tens of thousands, is it hundreds of thousands of cognitive neuroscience papers now can only correlate brain activity with the experiences that we're having in our minds. Um, so it just doesn't work. Um, there's panpsychist view, which is, well, it's not that your brain makes your mind. Maybe consciousness, this is a complexity idea. Consciousness is like a flock of birds. You have enough activity in a complex brain like a human brain, it gives rise emergently to human consciousness. Well, that doesn't solve the hard problem either. It just moves it down to smaller and smaller scales. Some people say it's cells, some people say it's quantum particles that carry consciousness, but it doesn't get you there. The third large category is we say in our culture it's woo-woo, um, that consciousness, mind comes first and
Hmm.
gives rise, as I described, as I tried to convey with the meditation. The problem with saying that this is woo-woo and not Western is that from Plato on down, Plato, Spinoza, Kant, Hegel, Western philosophy, this is the dominant model. It's not something that comes to us from Asia. It's within our own culture. Quantum physics takes us there. Complexity, as I've shown, takes us there. Relativity, poor Einstein didn't want it to, but it takes us there. And then you have what happens when the mind looks within, which can't be described by modern contemporary science because that depends on having a researcher investigating a system that they're completely separate, separation of subject and object. But if it's your own mind going into your own mind, there's no separation possible. And what the mind sees when it discovers when you go into your own awareness is that you come out the other side and there's nothing but mind. Shamanic traditions, Buddhism, what I cover in the book, Kashmiri Shaivism, Advaita Vedanta, Jewish mysticism, particularly Lurianic Kabbalah, and classical Buddhism, all say the same thing. And what they give you is exactly the same description as a complexity fueled view of reality, like I just took you through.
Hmm.
So there's no realm of human understanding that ultimately doesn't point to mind comes first. More than two words.
So this is wonderful because you really anticipated Wesley's question, which was, can you speak about your underlying philosophical presuppositions and your understanding of the universe? Wesley,
Done.
there you go. But now we drill down, if for those of us who want to get into even more semantics of the philosophies, are we talking about monism? Are we talking about panpsychism?
I don't know. Well, panpsychism is the little bits and pieces. This would be monisms fall into this. I don't know. I'm not a philosopher. Well,
Dualism,
people tell
one
me I
can
am a
lose their
philosopher.
mind. I went
Mhm.
over a little bit of this in my book too, because there are many different philosophies of consciousness, and then it's almost like this quibbling of the metaphysics.
Right.
So we do have traditions that, go through, mind-body dualism, believe that mind and body are separate things, but yet function on the principle of parallelism, right? Then there's monism, where everything is one mind, everything is Brahman, right? There's that. Then there's
You can do
panpsychism.
this much better than I
Everything is
can.
alive and, vibrating constantly with consciousness. Even the things that we think are dead, like this table that this computer is sitting on,
Right.
has consciousness. So there's no end to the ways that we can divide and use the mind to try to understand the mind, you
Right.
know. But in
But
the end,
this to me comes down to, so the word I use in the book and with my collaborator in the science papers that underlie it, Menescafatos, these are complementarities like wave particle duality of light in quantum physics. Niels Bohr, who came up with that term, said felt this to be a principle of the universe, not just quantum scale. And so, is it the faces of the two vases or the vase? It's both, but you can only see one at a time. I'm suspicious that all of these philosophies of mind are simply complementarities. If the human mind seeks to understand the mind through these means, you see this. If you if I want to look at the body as cells, I'll see that. If I want to look at it as fluid, I'll see that. And there is no one view that can encompass everything. And that's what we mean by non-dual. It's beyond description. It's beyond naming. It's beyond mathematics. It's beyond metaphor. So I don't worry about this anymore.
I love that. And I love that. And an invitation. And I'm going to come to Donna's question, which I think is also an invitation to maybe step beyond the spinning mind, which tries to understand the reality, but also speak to the different things that come to us when we're exploring the experience. And so I'm going to read Donna's question out because it's really for you, Neil. It's my personal experience that she is simultaneously organized and chaotic or wild. That wildness is intimidating to me. Is that my control issue or something else? I haven't been able to figure this question out. Could Neil comment on this? Deep gratitude.
Yeah, it's a control issue. Um, but this is the thing. I referred to this earlier. I talk about it a lot in the book, this notion of adjacent possibles. It's not that the possibles for the next moment are infinite. It's not an endlessly uncontrollable wildness in which there's no grounding. This is what karma is. Karma isn't good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. It's that whatever is going to arise in the next moment is conditioned by the moment before it. And it isn't infinite. It's also not so limited that you're just a machine. It's somewhere in between. And what that does for me is that I know the possibility, the reason we need this limited randomness in the system is because if the environment changes, how can we change to respond to the environment? There has to be a little wobble. Too much, the ants are wandering all over the place, there's no colony. Too little, the sugar cube gets used up, but the ants are still going back and forth in the same line. That's not adaptive either. You need a low level randomness to give possibilities for the next adjacent moment.
Mm,
To me, that's less, it's seething, it's bubbling. There's a
yeah,
simmering here, but it isn't just
yeah. Well, there's always the fear of that, right? This is, I'm so grateful, Donna, for
orgasms.
the book.
What-
Yeah, I mean, there's
They're
so many.
terrifying. Why? Because
Okay, I'm not even going to go there. That's okay. But this touching in to the wildness that is sometimes so incredibly felt when one is working, particularly with energy. And I've heard people talk about this even in silent meditation retreats, people who don't do energy work, feeling Kundalini rise. I mean, there's many ways that people have described this. And if I might offer, one of the things that comes up that I've noticed for people when they have this experience and the fear comes up is this fear of dissolving. It's
right,
like the fear
right,
of disappearing, right?
right,
Because if you
right.
follow what Neil has been saying, it's the sense of the loss of identity.
That's
And
why I'm a bad Zen student.
we're
Because
all
I get to the
conditioned.
edge and I'm like, maybe not.
Well, we've all been conditioned to think that we are this name, this body,
Right,
this whatever. So there
right.
is a part of us that becomes very threatened when we tap into that wildness that feels chaotic or just this pure potentiality of energy that is very, very strong.
Right.
It's interesting, Donna, that you brought this up because I had that experience today in a
Oh,
meditation. And I thought, wow, I can feel this energy that could literally feel like it could explode the planet at any moment. And there was a sense of like, oh, let's see if we can harmonize that. Not like be afraid of it, not freak out about it, recognize that this is pure potential energy that could be used for many
be
different things
with
or
it.
even just observed.
Right. To
Yep.
be
And
with it.
to be with it.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the biggest thing. And this really ties into a question that I think is a beautiful question for us to end on. Tying Donna's experience to this and our experience of the world at this moment. And, Neil, all of the beautiful wisdom you've shared with us about complexity and its nature and how we can experience it. Our anonymous attendee asks, could all good intentions, positivity, love for millions of people have an impact on the violence and atrocities in the globe? Could consciousness get us to another level?
Can I stir in a question that I see that came up from Terrence in the side
Yeah.
chat,
Yes.
who talks about having late stage prostate cancer, damaged heart, serious immune problems. Can I be healed using meditation? It's the same question. How much time do we have? Um,
Go over. Yeah, we can definitely go over a few
can we
minutes.
go over a little bit?
Absolutely.
This
Whatever suits you.
um, this story isn't in the book. It's not in my mom's book either, but I've been finding it very useful to share with people. Um, it came up in the context of talking to activists working in climate change and the despair they are feeling, that all the energy they've put in, and yet here we still are. Um, so my father was born in Germany. That's how I have a German passport. We're Jewish, not a good combo. He left on the Kindertransport in 1939. He was 12 years old and was sent, and that's how he survived. His older brother was 18, too old for the Kindertransport. My grandmother could have sent him to Amsterdam, but couldn't bear to send her other child away. And so the three of them, my grandparents and my uncle, were shipped, and many cousins were shipped to Riga, which is where the German Jews were sent. And my uncle survived. My grandparents were killed there. I went to visit Riga some years ago, and I found where my grandmother was shot in the woods, the classic mass grave sort of situation. And I thought to myself, who was she in that moment? And and I thought it was pretty clear. She probably died in that moment, like it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I know more detail about the event than I care to. Um, and that she had made all the wrong decisions. She lost her younger son, she lost her older son, she lost her husband, and now she was going to lose her life. And then she did. And that's how she died. But what she couldn't know is that she was the only one of her siblings and cousins who didn't lose a child. Had she sent my uncle to the Netherlands, he would have been sent to Auschwitz probably. And
Wow.
that was a death camp. He would have died. But in Riga, he was in a work camp. He had the chance to survive. Um, she had six grandchildren. I'm not sure how many great grandchildren. It's over a dozen. There are great great grandchildren now. Um, so yes, all those things matter. And yes, all those things can affect a change. Her choices meant that her children and her family survived, even though she couldn't know it. And from the limited perspective of her own life, it was disaster. But she succeeded. She made the right choices. And I think that we have to go into any moment, whether it's personal illness, and I've had 2 strokes, a hip replacement, and major shoulder repairs in the last year. Um, you approach the world with what you see in front of you, and you make your best attempts within what you know to respond to it in a skillful, compassionate fashion. And you do that, but if you have an expectation that you'll know whether you were successful, if you have an expectation that you'll come up with the solution that will fix climate change, if you think the solution will be, I will live longer, that may not be the pivot of change. The pivot of change might be you don't live longer, but you're in equanimity and ready to go and receiving what comes in from the universe at you. This is my mom's book as you are getting ready to pass. Um, if you have to give up on having an expectation that you will find out what the answer is, that you have to give up on will you even be around to see it? And it may be that how you held the door for someone in the morning is the thing that made all the difference, and not what you planned and thought using your head. So that's how I answer those two questions. Yes. Can I be healed using meditation? Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to live longer. It might,
It might. It might not, but you will be more at peace regardless,
but
which
you
is,
will be living better. And isn't that a healing?
yes.
My
Yeah.
grandmother did not survive, but her family did. And there's a ghost story that goes with that. Um, it turned out I met her there. Her ghost was there.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she came home with me. That's a very long story. That's book three. But I was like, how do we help her move on? And on the anniversary of the 2-day train ride from Germany to Riga, I had all of her descendants light candles and put pictures of all her descendants at. And she was with me for about a month and a half. And when we did that, she finally moved on.
Wow. Wow, thank you for sharing that. And
I thought that was worth an extra few
when
minutes.
book number 3 and book number 2 come out, we can't wait to hear about your experiences with your family members and the connections that you're making through the field with them and the teachings that are coming through you at such a critical time. So thank you, Neil, so
No,
deeply for
thank you. I mean, you
you're just a
know,
treasure, a treasure of scientific knowledge, of course, and practice, but also of such great heart to have the opportunity and the privilege here at the Consciousness and Healing Initiative to be able to host guests like you and share your wisdom with the community is so deeply meaningful for us. And, I know it's late in Lisbon. I mean, in London, late in London and Lisbon,
no, still
you know?
sunny.
And for you to just take some time to share with us your perspectives and your wisdom. And I know there's so much more to discuss. We didn't even touch the interstition yet, So maybe another time we'll have the opportunity to do
Invite
that
me back.
too. And
Sure.
yeah, we would absolutely love that. But I
It's
also,
always a pleasure talking with you, Shamini. And
oh,
thank you, Jason, for your
yeah, being a
continuing
wizard behind the scenes.
careful support and kindness.
And with that, I want to do just a couple of closeout things. Some folks were wondering if you teach classes online or otherwise in person, best ways to reach you. So anything you'd like to share about that? Neil, what are best ways that people could reach you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted by things bubbling. Say that again, please. I'm sorry.
Best ways that people could reach you, potentially learn from you, come to class.
NeilTheiseOfficial.com is where I'm posting things. All the academic stuff that underlies what's in the stuff I write about is there as well. And I encourage people, if you're academically minded, most of them are downloadable PDFs. There is science, peer
Mhm.
reviewed
Yeah.
under this. And I post on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, when I have stuff coming out, and that's how people can sort of keep track.
So
And the
great.
new book, it's called Sarah in the In-Between, because my mom survived sort of in between this world and the next one for about 6 years, refusing to go.
Wow.
Um, that should be finished in October and hopefully out in the spring.
Oh, that's amazing. Great. Nice short publication time. Love that. That's
Well,
wonderful.
the gestation time. That's the book I wanted to write, but they made me write the complexity book first.
Oh, I love that.
So,
That's
yeah.
great. That's great. Well, thank you, Neil. And I want to thank everyone who's been listening and watching. I especially want to thank those of you who help support us to do these webinars by becoming Chi contributors. Many people ask, will there be a replay? Yes, there's a replay of this for free for everyone for 48 hours. In order for us to sustain, our beautiful community of folks who help us put these together, like Jason, Chloe, and so many others, we
Hi,
ask that
Chloe.
for supporting the Consciousness and Healing Initiative. It's a 501(c)(3). You can join as a contributor today, and I invite you to do so. It is a mere $9 a month, and in doing so, of course, you have access to Neil and so many more leading lights, free replays of these beautiful webinars in perpetuity, free meditations in your inbox every month, latest science updates, and pretty soon a beautiful community forum that we're going to be able to offer to our contributors so we can continue the conversations between webinars. So please do support the Consciousness and Healing Initiative by becoming a contributor today. Jason will put that link in the chat if he has not. And wow, what a beautiful time together. Neil, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Shamini.
Thank you so much. And wishing all of you all a beautiful weekend till we meet again next month.